Hello and welcome to Saints Live with me, Steve Forbes.
And me, Kenzie Benali.
Now today, Southampton return to St Mary's to face the current Premier League champions Manchester City. Make sure to get your comments into us before and after team news. Let us know your thoughts and we'll try to read as many of those out as we can through the show. But first, let's welcome our guests for this afternoon. We have former Saints captain Dean Hammond and NBC's lead soccer writer Joe Prince. Right, gentlemen, I hope you're both doing well. Dean, lovely to see you. We missed you last week while you're off on your holidays. I hope you're feeling well rested ahead of another important match.
I am, Steve. I miss you guys as well. But no, a bit of mid-season warm weather training in prep for the game today was very welcome. But no, I had a lovely time with the family. But good to be back and looking forward to a huge game today.
And Joe, great to have you back on again as always. And what a fixture you've chosen to return on.
Yeah, not bad. I feel like I'm in warm weather training here today at St Mary's. So yeah, I can see you guys over there. It's great to see you again. And thanks for having me along. I'm really looking forward to today and been lucky enough to be at a lot of these big games at St Mary's against the teams at the top of the table recently and some positive results in those. So I'm hoping we follow a similar trend today.
You can probably see Joe somewhere in the back of our shot, joining us from the press area there at St Mary's. Let's get to it then, shall we? Because plenty to discuss, as always. Team news coming up in less than 15 minutes' time. So let's just recap what we know so far. Che Adams and Mohamed Salisu are both out through injury. Armel Balakotchap is a doubt. Tino Livramento is back in training but won't be available today. And Juan Larios is a long-term absentee. So Dean, let's come to you first then. What do you expect Ruben to do with his lineup today? Do you think he'll make some tactical changes given the calibre of today's opponents?
I think he will, Kenzie. I think it'll be interesting to see what shape he plays, whether he continues with the 4-4-2 or the 4-2-2-2 that has been reasonably effective for Southampton of late, or whether he'll change. I think he may change. I think he may go to the 4-2-3-1 because of the quality Man City have. They've changed themselves of late and gone to a 3-2-4-1, which is a new formation to me, but it seems to be working for them. And it's all for Southampton. Can they ask questions of Man City today? And that's going to be difficult. I think defensively will stay the same. The goalkeeper will stay the same. I think James Ward-Prowse and Lavia will sit in that midfield area. I think Alcaraz may come into that midfield area as well to make those deep runs from midfield that he does, to bring that energy that he has. Very athletic. He has a goal threat, which Southampton obviously need to be able to win the game today. And then in the wide areas, will Theo Walcott play up front on his own? I'm not too sure. I think he can play up front, but with a partner. And if we change shape, I think he may play wide. Will Onuachu then come into the central position as a striker? But again, how will Southampton play if he comes into the team? Will we go a little bit more direct? Will we play into his feet? We'll try and get more crosses into the box. I think Stuart Armstrong will play in the other position, but narrow. And I think today for Southampton against this Man City team, especially with the formation they're playing at the moment, the fullbacks for Southampton are going to be so important. Defensively, in one-on-one situations, they're going to have to be exceptionally good, and because Man City are so strong in those areas. But obviously, to give Southampton a threat going forward, they're going to have to be able to get in those supporting positions. Cole Walker-Peters is so effective when he does that. He's a huge threat for Southampton, and Perro as well. So, look, this is going to be a tough game today. It really is. And it's going to take a huge effort from the Southampton players. But Joe mentioned it. We've been good against the so-called bigger teams. We seem to raise our game. We seem to take our game to the next level, which is going to be needed today. So it'll be interesting to see how they line up. But for me, I think it'll be a similar personnel, but I think the shape will change today.
And what about yourself, Joe? Would you make any changes to the team that lost to West Ham last time out?
Yeah, Dean mentioned it there. I think in attack especially is the biggest question mark for me. Is Onuachu going to start? I mean, the one good cross that basically he's ever got into him since he's turned up at Saints, he sent a nice header onto the crossbar and looked dangerous from that situation. So maybe he starts. And I'd love to see Sulemana and Alcaraz starting as well, maybe just underneath him, picking up on the little knockdowns and giving him some support, because obviously Che Adams is a big miss for injury up top there. And I was at Man City's win against Liverpool last weekend in my role of NBC, and they did have some problems on transitions with players with pace. Liverpool ripped them open in the first half in particular a few times. Dean mentioned it there, the 3-2-4-1 formation for City it's still a little bit new to them. John Stones is kind of playing that hybrid centre midfield right back role. So there are some gaps out wide there in those channels. So I do wonder if Saints, go with Walcott and Silamana from the start, or maybe someone like Adam Armstrong comes into the team. I don't know, for his pace and pressing and getting the most of some of those gaps. And just, we saw it in the cup game that I know we're going to talk about when we beat them here earlier this season. It was a lot of high pressure, a lot of intensity. And I think that's the key for Saints today. Start quickly, put Man City on the back foot if they can, and try and make it a very uncomfortable game for them. So I think we're going to see a few changes and maybe even Diallo coming into midfield as well, because you might need a bit of extra defensive cover in that area. So, yeah, there's a lot of things they can do. But I think that the key players, Lavia, Ward-Prowse, Bednarak's been great. Bazunu and goals doing okay. So there's going to be a same kind of core as against West Ham. But in those attacking areas in particular, would love to see a few more positive changes, I think, and really get the fans behind them today from day one, from minute one.
Well, we will hear from Ruben Selles in just a moment's time. But before we do, let's take a look at some scores elsewhere. Of course, Manchester United moving into third after beating Everton 2-0 earlier on. Scores currently ongoing. Aston Villa beating Nottingham Forest 1-0 as it stands. Brentford 1, Newcastle 2, Fulham 0, West Ham 1, Leicester 0, Bournemouth 1, Tottenham 1, Brighton 1, Wolves 1, Chelsea 0. So certainly some results, current scores, Steve, that are affecting Southampton, or could well affect them.
Indeed, yeah. Well, on the subject of scores and goals, we'll hear from the manager now, because although Southampton scored 3 in their last home game against Spurs, they haven't scored in 3 of the last 4 games, and Ruben Selles knows that's an issue that does need addressing.
You have a bit of a handicap with Shea being injured up front. We know that. But aside from City, just between now and the end of the season, you need to find more threat, don't you? If I looked on paper last Sunday, you had 2 goals in the attacking 4 players in the Premier League this season. It's not enough for you, I know. How do you find more goals in this team?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think we have been working in our last third principles. I think we have some special things for the game against Manchester City. And I think we need to make an evolution, because it's, as I told to the boys, now we have the time to resist and the time to put the things in order. It's gone now. It's time to rebel. We need to rebel. We need to get more of the last third. We need to get the last bit of offensive mentality there. And this is our time when we can go one step forward, and we need to go one step forward.
Ruben Selles there talking about working on principles in the final third. Dean, is Theo Walcott going to be key to that? Because we saw in our last home game, didn't we, that with his attacking experience, he can help to provide goals.
Well, I think he's the most natural goal scorer we have at the club now. It's just getting him in those positions to be able to execute the chances that he'll get. And we see from the Tottenham game, what he has is he's got brilliant experience. His movement is very, very good. His timing of his movement is good. His delivery across to Shea for that equaliser against Tottenham was brilliant. And on the day, he was so effective. We see here that he's so clever. He goes in between defenders, and he doesn't sprint until he needs to sprint, until he knows that ball's coming. And then he puts the ball across the box with real play, with real pace. And it's very, very good. And we need Theo in these positions. I thought he was brilliant against Tottenham Hotspur. And then his goal is fantastic as well, because if you watch him, he's always on the move. As the ball goes over his head, he's not hesitating. He's expecting the ball will come back to him. And then his technique is brilliant, that he gets his head over the ball. But if you look at him, he takes 1 or 2 little steps just to compose himself, so he gives himself the chance to have a good connection. And I think he is vital, if I'm honest, whether he's playing centrally, whether he's playing wide and he gets assists, or whether he plays wide and he can come in and join in and get into the box like we saw with his goal there. He's been really important since he's come back, and he's had a real impact on performances. I thought he would play a big part in terms of being around the group and helping the younger players and passing on his experience. But in the last probably 4 or 5 games, he's been excellent and probably been the main man for Southampton. So it's all about getting him in those positions, whether it's, like I say, whether it's him scoring the goals or whether it's him creating the goals. He's been excellent of late, but he he has that experience. And what I like about him at the moment, he looks like he's really willing to make that effort, whether he's making runs in behind, whether he's coming short. He looks really assured, looks really trustworthy in the position. He's got the trust of the manager. He looks like he enjoys playing for the manager, which is really, really important. We know he loves the football club. I think that's going to be important for the end of the season. We know it's a difficult position that Southampton are in, so we need players like Theo. But yes, Southampton need to score more goals. So if he's involved in the play, I think we have a better chance of scoring more goals and winning more games from now until the end of the season.
Keeping on the subject of our forward players, Sékou started last weekend's game, Joe, against West Ham. It's fair to say he didn't have his best performance, but at just 20 years of age, it's important that we stay patient with him.
Yeah, it is, Steve. I think he's only started, 4 Premier League games all season long, and I still think he's 1 to 2 years away from really being a regular player in the Premier League. It was tough for him against West Ham. His hold-up play just kind of struggled with that, but he's been a very good impact player off the bench. I mean, he's been key in the comeback draws against Leeds, as we're seeing, and most recently against Tottenham, he set up Theo Walcott's goal then. And my main thing is, has he really ever been given the service when he has played up front this season? I mean, Saints obviously the joint lowest scorers in the Premier League, so I don't think it's just about Sékou. It's about the players around him, the combinations, and getting him into some open spaces. We see when he does have some space in front of him, you can see that he has the knack and he has the ability to score, as he did against Man City in the League Cup earlier this season. So it's important to stay patient with him, realise his potential. And I just think if you look at his finishes in the past for Bordeaux and the French youth national teams, very similar, loves to get in behind, get the shots across goal. So there's something here. Saints just have to get him in the right positions, but it really hasn't happened that often this season. But there is, again, a huge amount of potential. Has to stay patient. I think he's working really hard. As I mentioned, he's an impact player. He is a player that can come off the bench and really make things happen. And I think that's his role right now for Saints. And then maybe he'll grow this season over the off-season and then be an important player in the future. But there's a lot of potential there. Just need to give him some help in the final third.
Dean, Paul Onuachu came on and hit the crossbar against West Ham. From what you've seen of him, do you think that the team is still working out how to play to his strengths?
I think so, Kenzie. To be fair to Paul, he's been at the club in such a short period of time. He's had 2 managers already, and 2 managers that play a different style. He's obviously adapting to the culture. He's adapting to the environment at the football club, and obviously the level of the Premier League he would have never experienced before. So I think he's getting used to the style of play, and I think the players are getting used to him as well. Obviously, he's a physical presence. He has that height. So any good delivery into the box, you'd expect him to get the first contact on goal, whether that's assisting another player, because he's physically strong. His hold-up plays okay. I think he's pretty assured in terms of possession. We're seeing highlights here that he looks after the ball, which is really important for attacking players to be able to build up play, to be able to introduce midfield players into attacking positions. But he's not really had too many opportunities. He's not had a consistent run in the team, which is very, very difficult when you're coming to a new club. But like Joe mentioned, the 2 best opportunities he's had is the header against Chelsea and then this one against West Ham, which is what we all expect, because James Ward-Prowse's delivery is so good. He can put it into the exact position you want. So it's relationships again. It's Paul speaking to Prowse and telling him that I like either runs across the front man, so deliver it there into the space, or I'm going to pull out to the back post where I prefer that position. I remember Ricky Lambert and Adam Lallana had a really good chemistry where they knew each other so well. Adam knew exactly where Ricky wanted it at certain moments, and you have to build those relationships, and that takes time. So I think more deliveries you get in the box and the fitter he gets and the more experience he gets in the Premier League, the better he'll become.
Yeah, sure he will. So we're going to have the team news in just a matter of seconds, but maybe we could have a couple of comments from the fans, Ken, to see what they're saying, watching in from home.
Let's rattle through a couple. We've got Leslie Emery tuning in. He says, come on, you Reds. Solomon Draxler says, we can do it. Come on, Saints. Ryan Ackland going for a 3-2 Southampton win. And Trevor Harvey on Facebook saying, I got all my fingers and toes crossed.
Yeah, so have we up here on the gantry as well. But it's time to bring you that Saints news now. So there are 4 changes from the game against West Ham. So Maitland-Niles, Bella Kotchap returning from injury, Alcaraz and Kamaldeen come in in for Pero, Shaletta Sarr, Stuart Armstrong and Sékou Mara. So here's the Southampton starting 11 in full. In goal, Gavin Bazunu, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Jan Bednarek, Armel Bella-Kotchap, Carl Walker-Peters, Romeo Lavia, our captain James Ward-Prowse, Moy Elianusi, Theo Walcott, Charlie Alcaraz and Kamaldeen Sulemana. And on the substitutes bench for Southampton, we have Alex McCarthy, Duje Shaletta Sarr, Roman Pero, Ibrahima Diallo, Stuart Armstrong, Musa Djenepo, Sam Adozi, Sékou Mara and Big Paul Onuachu. Dean, let's come to you first. What do you make of that team? And maybe a surprise that there's a lack of an out-and-out striker in the team.
It is, Steve, but I think what you get from that team is that you'll get a lot of movement, a lot of rotation within the attacking areas. I think Cole Walker-Peters will play at left back and Niles will come in at right back, and he's done a really good job there. I think Lavia and James Ward-Prowse will sit in the central areas and protect that back four, which they do so well, and start the attacking situations off for Southampton. And then I think Alcaraz will make his bursting runs from midfield in support of that one striker, I think, and I believe that will probably be Theo Walcott. I know I said that he won't play there on his own, but it looks like he will. You have the willingness of Elianusi to get into the box, and then you have the energy, the pace, the unpredictability of Sulemana, which you need in against a bigger club, because he's willing to take players on, he's willing to do something different. And when Southampton have periods of not having possession of the ball and are probably camped in their own half, to have his pace on the counter-attack and have him in one-on-one situations will be really, really important today. But I don't think those players will be staying in those positions. I think there'll be a lot of rotations, a lot of movements, just to cause Man City problems. And it'll be interesting to see how they set up. But like I say, I don't think they'll be static. I think there'll be lots of movement in those attacking areas for Southampton today.
Joe, Dean talks about fluidity. And do you see this as a team that Ruben selected with chance creation in mind rather than finishing?
I think so, Steve. It's almost like a 4-2-4, it seems to me, without a recognised striker. But those front four, if you like, are just going to be rotating Theo, Alcaraz, Sulemana, Elianusi. Steve mentioned they could interchange perfectly, and I mentioned it before when I was at the Man City win against Liverpool last week. The one sort of Achilles heel for them was that the flanks, where they're defending. John Stones still learning that new position, tucking inside. Akanji's then dragged out from centre back to kind of right back area, and I think Sulemana can really get in down that left hand channel if he does start out there. And the same for Walcott, Elianusi, whoever's starting on the other side as well. So. It's good to have the unpredictability. I think Man City will look at the team sheet and think, not really sure how they're going to set up here, which is a good thing. But I think having pace and movement is perfect. And what Saints have to do is get the ball forward quickly to catch City out, but also just accurately. They need to somehow keep hold of the ball. And I think some of these players in this team, Alcaraz, Elianusi, and Sulemana as well, they will just take some of the pressure off. They'll keep hold of the ball. And just shield it and help the Saints get further up the pitch as well. So, yeah, it's a bit unpredictable, but I think what they're doing, Steve, is just getting their most impactful players on the pitch all at the same time together and hoping that something works, because we know that there's been a struggle for goals in recent weeks. So this is almost one of the only things they haven't tried. So I'm excited to see it.
All right, well, we are excited too. And as the Saints fans watching along at home, make sure you're, of course, letting us know what you make of that starting 11. But we're going to get to a few more comments now, because we only got to do a couple, didn't we, before the team news broke. Rosemary Rickett is with us on YouTube. Hello, she's a regular viewer on Saints Live. She says, so glad the game is a sellout. This will be a tough one, but as long as we put in 100%. St. Rob's going for a 1-0 Southampton win. J4M on YouTube is agreeing with you. We have another comment here from Hom3008, 2-1 Saints win all day this one. And another comment coming in here from Louis Jeffrey on YouTube. He says, we are going to need the crowd to get behind the team to have any chance today. And we'll finish with this one here from Holly Hudson. She says, we took them in the Carabao Cup, now to win in the bigger league.
Yeah, why not, eh? Joe, going back to our game against West Ham, that was the 8th time this season that Southampton have lost 1-0. The goal came from a set piece. Do you want to talk us through that? And also, do you think it was a free kick in the first place?
I don't know, Steve. It was pretty soft, to be honest. I mean, when you first look at it and see it in the run of play, it's like, oh, it definitely looks like a foul from Selles. When you see the replay, though, both players kind of just run into each other. And I think Bowen didn't have possession of the ball, and I think it was very clever from Jarrod Bowen to win that free kick there. It was committed. Both players just arrived at the same time. It looks, the centre-back's always probably going to concede the foul in that situation. But yeah, I think it was a little bit harsh, kind of a 50-50 challenge there. But as we see the free kick coming in there, obviously from a very deep position, there should be no real issue dealing with this. And the first thing is in my mind is this is a very high line from Saints, and that causes problems. You can see here the highlighted area. Cheddar and Al-Yunusi getting a bit of a mess. Al-Yunusi passes on a guard, and it was sort of there was no communication there. You could see that it was good movement from the guard, but he was on the blind side of Cheddar, got in behind him, and most importantly, goal side. And that is just really, really poor because Saints centre-backs there are caught ball watching. You have to be aware of who's around you in this situation. And you know, I think Cheddar trying to hold the line there with Bednarak and Carl Walker-Peters, but Lavia and Mara were not holding the line. And then I think he half expects Bednarak to clear it, Cheddar, and then doesn't really react. And as defenders, you've got to fear the worst and prepare for the worst and expect the worst in those situations. And there were just too many Saints players leaving it to one another. Even Gavin Bazzuno, I think, could have maybe been a bit brighter coming off his line to try and get closer to that. It was just a lot of errors. And Selles and James Ward-Prowse in the week have been talking about so many managerial changes, about different ways of defending crosses and set pieces, and that's been a real problem area for Saints this season, given all the different tactics and managers and ways they want to do that. So there did seem to be a lot of confusion there, Steve, and the margins are so small, especially in the situation Saints find themselves in right now. They cannot afford anything like that to happen for the rest of the season, so they've got to brush up on that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Dean, people are already speculating, aren't they, that this could be one of the closest relegation battles in Premier League history. And with 8 teams separated by just 6 points before today's game, it really, really is a case of every point matters from here on out to the end of the season.
It does, Kenzie. I mean, it's pretty unique. And look, no team wants to be near the bottom of the Premier League, but it's an exciting position to be in. You've got something to fight for. But it's going to be really, really close. And who knows what points tally it will take. I think maybe 36, 37 points will keep you up this season. So, you know, for Southampton, that's going to be 4 or 5 wins maybe, or 4 wins and a couple of draws from the remaining 9 games, which is possible, but a big feat. We've got some teams around us that we've got to play as well, which is really, really important. And they're must-win games, really. I think we've got 5 home games left as well, which is really, really important. The home form of late has been a bit better in terms of performances, which helps. We're conceding less goals, but not scoring as many as we would like. So it's going to go down to the wire. It really, really is, with probably 6, 7, 8 teams, like you say. And it will chop and change, and people will move positions. Teams will think they've got out of it and they're safe, and then they'll be dragged back in. Because I think if you look at the Premier League fixtures and remaining fixtures, everyone's got to kind of play each other. And there will be surprise results. There always is in this position. You know, there always is in the Premier League. That's why it's so exciting. So it's going to be difficult. But for Southampton, you know, when we've played the bigger teams, again, the so-called bigger teams, we put our best performance in under Ruben Selles. And we seem to rise our game. And we've got 5 of those teams to play as well, which have all got things to play on. So there'll be pressure on them. They'll want to win, which again makes it more exciting. So look, lots to play for, and it will go down to the last game. It's going to be really exciting, the last remaining games. But Southampton just have to concentrate on themselves and try and get the biggest tally they can, win as many games as they possibly can, and pick up as many points as they can, especially when you're in difficult situations.
Well, let's shift the focus onto today's match then, Joe. We have, of course, already played Manchester City at St Mary's Stadium this season. What did they learn from that game, and what can they take into that match this evening?
Kenzie, it was a very impressive display, very balanced. I mean, sort of James Ward-Prowse playing a bit higher. Diallo was in for this one, but the high pressing worked from the start. It was absolutely excellent. It put City totally under pressure. Very brave from Saints to do that against one of the best teams in the world, if not the best team. And I think Saints just have to do the same today. They have to use this as a blueprint and almost play in shifts. You know what I'm saying? It's like players working their socks off for 45 minutes. If you're too tired, then come off at half time or early in the second half and just keep the intensity high. And they have matched up really well against City in recent years. So there is a reason why Saints have been successful. We're seeing Sékou here, great finish, getting the ball wide early in those channels, whipping in crosses, and a Moussa Djenepo over Djenepo special here from distance into the top corner. And this was a memorable win for Saints at this time. And they, as I mentioned, they have had success against Man City. Yes, City rested a few key players for that night, and they changed a few things around. But you need a little bit of luck against Man City. But Saints could have even won by more. We're seeing a Shea Adams goal here disallowed for offside, but it was just impressive in so many ways. Just the approach, the confidence, and the bravery to pull it off. And that's what gives me a little bit of hope heading into today's game, because this group of players have proved that they can do this against Man City multiple times over the last few seasons. And you can see the celebrations, how much it meant to them. And I think that will give them a lot of confidence, as I said, a blueprint and a focus that, hey, we've done this already this season. We can do it again.
We saw the goals there, Dean, from that match. Perhaps contenders for goals of this season from Mara and Djenepo. Brilliant finishes, especially that Djenepo one. I think I can still remember the roar of the crowd when that went in.
Two brilliant goals, Steve, and a brilliant performance like Joe's just touched on there. And it just demonstrates what you need, really, against Man City. Southampton had a good structure, but were really, really clinical. The ball in from Lianco. Mara, it's a brilliant finish. He's really patient in his movement, the time in his movement, the delivery is really, really good. Something like I mentioned before, you work on a training ground, you put it into certain areas, and the control on the finish, just that one touch. And to score goals against Man City, generally they're quality goals because they're so good defensively and you're playing against such good players. This goal I love because it starts with Lava being really brave in possession, receiving the ball, getting on the half turn and playing forward. Kyle Walker-Peters is in a really advanced position, so Djenepo can go centrally and get on the half turn. And as soon as he's on the half turn, he's really, really positive. The goalkeeper's positioning is questionable, but Djenepo still needs to have that awareness to be able to lift it over him and put it into the goal. So two brilliant goals, and wouldn't it be fantastic if we saw a couple of those today and another Southampton win against Man City? But Joe touched on it. We play well against Man City. We always seem to ask questions of them, always seem to win possession back off them. We seem to press them. We seem to cause those problems. So we need another performance like that today. And we need a little bit of luck. But, another goal of the season contender today will be very, very welcome.
Yeah, we'd certainly take that, wouldn't we? Well, Joe, it was a positive result in this fixture last season with Kyle Walker-Peters' strike earning the Saints a point. What do you remember from that one?
Yeah, just another really good performance that totally deserved a point. Was it 2 defeats in the last 5 home games against Man City in all competitions? So I don't think there's many teams that have that good of a record against them. And again, Saints press high, work hard, and the key was keeping the ball, and that's how they scored that opening goal there. Worked it around the pitch, switched it. Walker-Peters came in a lovely finish. And then you can see, again, Brozier getting in behind, and it was just picking, like Dean said, the right moments. Then you have to be clinical. When you create these opportunities, against a team of Man City's ability, you're not going to get that many big opportunities, and you have to take them. And obviously, Man City had a few missed opportunities themselves, which helps. You have to have a bit of luck against these top teams. But also, we're seeing chances for Saints here. They could have gone even further in front. So, again, I mentioned it earlier. When you get forward against a team of Man City's quality, you have to be quick and you have to be accurate, because they do put a lot of people in the final third. They do commit a lot of bodies forward, even from midfield. So when you win the ball back, you have to get it wide early, have to be accurate, and Saints have to be really crisp with their passing today. And as I said, they could have won this game, but this group of players now has a real blueprint of how to get past City at home and replicate that success. And, I'm here today looking at Ruben Selles' notes in the match day program, and he's saying, together we can do something special with the fans. And he was alluding to the atmosphere bouncing against Tottenham. And it feels like now, walking around the streets around St Mary's on the way here, that there's that atmosphere building among the fans. Like, this is go time now. This is crunch time for Saints. Yes, they're the heavy underdogs today, but they've done it so many times over the years. They pulled out a result when no one expected them to. And the fact that they've done it again against Man City recently, the last few seasons don't count for anything today, guys, but that gives you belief as a player. Dean will tell you, if you've done it against a certain team and a certain style of play, it almost is second nature. It kicks in, oh, this is what I do in this situation. And we've seen enough good things from Saints against City, as good as they are, to give us a lot of hope, and they need some help going into today.
Yeah, Saints will be taken to the field this evening, hoping that results elsewhere in the Premier League have gone their way. So we can take a look now and see what's been happening at other grounds. Nottingham Forest are still losing 1-0 to Aston Villa. West Ham are beating Fulham. Also, Bournemouth are winning away at Leicester, and Wolves are still beating Chelsea 1-0. So from those results to the all-important score predictions from both of you guys, Dean, how do you see today's match going?
A tough game, Steve, a really tough game. It's going to take a massive effort from all the players. We're going to need that spirit. We're going to need that resilience, that togetherness. And ultimately, we're going to need some quality to be able to win this game. But the players have proved that they can do it, and they need to have that belief. They need to have that hope, and hope that Man City have a slight off day and miss chances, and Bazunu has one of his best games in a Southampton shirt, and maybe we get a couple of VAR decisions. But I think we sometimes build up the big teams too much. They're brilliant, and they are one of the best teams in the world, Man City, but they're only human beings. You know, they're not anything special or anything different. So Southampton can definitely get a result today, can definitely win the game. And look, I'm going to be really confident, I'm going to be really brave, and I'm going to go for a 1-0 Southampton win today.
Okay, well, Dean's very confident. Joe going for a win, calling Man City only human. I'm sure Erling Haaland might disagree. What are you saying?
Oh, I would love to go for a win as well. And I think you have to be brave, you have to be bold if you're Saints. And you know, the situation they're in right now, with other teams picking up wins today, it just ramps up the urgency. And the pressure is kind of off a little bit. And I think this Saints team come out all guns blazing, and their instincts kind of kick in. This young squad against the big teams this season, as we mentioned, performed so much better than, you know, the game last week against West Ham, for example. Looked nervous, edgy, didn't want to give anything away. I think they just have to go out and express themselves today. I'd love to say they go for a win, but I'd happily take a draw, and that's why I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think that'd be a huge step forward for Saints heading into the final weeks of the season. So, yeah, a lot of positive vibes here at St Mary's today.
Okay.
To hear. Great to have you with us once more, Joe and Dean. We look forward to you rejoining us after the match. But of course, we are edging ever closer to the Premier League fixture here tonight between Southampton and Manchester City. Kickoff is at 5:30, and myself, Steve, Dean and Joe will be back with you for the final whistle after the game. So do make sure you join us then.
See you soon.